Good evening and welcome to the High Performance Show with me, Kamira Rajun, where we showcase ordinary South Africans under 30 living extraordinary lives. Today's special guest is Dylan Ascough, an actuary from Cape Town who was also involved in social media marketing, as well as during his varsity time involved in the Metanoia Residence House Committee, where he headed up the marketing portfolio, as well as a previous mentor in the residence. Dylan is a high performer like no other. He's got an extreme entrepreneurial flair and a passion for helping people be the best that they can, especially in the area of financial freedom and financial literacy. When Dylan is not busy charting an amazing path and impact in people's lives, he can be found outdoors, enjoying adventure as a scuba diver, as well as playing soccer with his friends. Dylan, welcome to our show and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much, Kamir. Yeah, so stoked to be here.
And we're looking forward to having you and hearing your story. Dylan, you've had an amazing journey and I've known you since varsity in our residence days. Please tell me what got you on this path in terms of, entrepreneurship, financial freedom and education, as well as pursuing the actuary. How did it all begin?
So I guess if that's like two parts. So the actuarial stuff, I don't know. I think quite a lot of actuaries might actually start their life like this. So I was always liked maths as a kid, kind of took a flair to maths. I was never so much on languages. Like my mom always tells a story, like when I was a kid, she'd read us stories and my sister would listen to the stories and I just add up the page numbers at the bottom, at the end. So like page 1 plus page 2 is page 3, it's like 3 and move on. So I was always numbers. So I think when I got to school, obviously I had a decent maths mark and quite a lot of people recommend that like you got a decent maths mark, they say go engineering or actuarial science or something like that. So I ended up just going for the actuarial route. Wasn't sure what the path was. And I was always into business and everyone said it's a really good business degree. I was always interested in that. And then, yeah, kind of one thing led to another. Always kind of like just checking along the way if I really actually, if actuarial, as I learned more about what it actually was what I wanted to do. And yeah, I enjoy it. I always enjoyed the probability side of maths. And actuarial is obviously like a lot of that in terms of risk analysis. And yeah, so I just kind of got more and more into that field and it's a hard push and I enjoy the grind of it. So yeah, it's a little bit I fell into it the whole time, a little bit by luck. But it's a good time to, it's a good career. I enjoy it. It's a lovely industry to work in. And in terms of, I guess, the entrepreneurial side, I think it's always been, I don't know, it's a bit of a thing that you might be born with it a bit. I don't know, from the people I've met, it's like a passion. You know what I mean? Like some people like to read, some people like to, it's just how you just enjoy, learning about business or trying out businesses. So yeah, I don't even know where it started, to be honest. I do have some entrepreneurial people in my family. So maybe, engaging with them, get more insights and more, as you learn more about stuff, you get more into it. So maybe something there. But yeah, I think something I've always loved since I was a kid, just the concept of business. So, and then I think also just, fun to play around with it. So get involved there.
And it's amazing that you mentioned that passion drives you because, speaking to all the previous high performers on the show as well, they all are quite self-aware individuals. They were able to gravitate towards what sparked their interest and decided to chase that relentlessly. Now, in terms of the actuarial science, it's got quite a reputation for being an extremely demanding course, with a high dropout rate, a high, change rate. So in terms of that, your journey, you're very humble, and you've obviously said you've loved it, but it wouldn't have been without its challenges. And one thing with being a high performer is that they're extremely resilient individuals. So how did you handle that adversity, the constant difficulty of the course and the demanding nature of the profession you're in? How did you push through to stay motivated to get to the end? Because you've got 12 exemptions now under your belt.
Yeah, so I mean, as you say, actuarial science, at least from my experience, it's not without its real hectic difficulties. It's a real strong grind, and if you don't want to do it, you probably might not be able to get through it. Like anything that's hard, you have to have that self-motivation. So I think my self-motivation actually comes from about two places. So it comes from, I guess I have this like always like a feel, I don't know where it necessarily comes from, but I always just love the idea of bettering myself and the mental challenge of things. And I think I was sometime in matric, I got a book. It was weird. It was like, I remember actually when I was in the bookstore, it's one of those books, I don't know if you see, they're actually like wrapped, so you can't read the first couple pages. So,
Right.
and I was like, what is this? And it was like about brain hacks, and it was like 450 Rand for this like 80-page book. And I was like, what? So I bought it, and like, I just like the idea always of like reaching your full potential, whatever that is. So a lot of my stuff, I don't even know what my full potential is. It doesn't even know where it should be, but I like to be able to have a good go at achieving it. So I think that is a lot of my motivation to get through the hardships. And also to get through the hardships, you know, like to be able to achieve things that are cool. It's all I mean, if it wasn't hard, everyone would have done it. So, and I always want to be able to, you know, have a good go at achieving what I think is my maximum potential and what I would consider cool. So it's kind of, I've accepted a while ago that it's part of the course. It comes with the grind. But yeah, there has to be an enjoyment factor. Otherwise, it's no fun, and you can't put in the kind of work that everything's needed. And I didn't always enjoy it either. There's a lot of times where I didn't enjoy the graft, but I thought it'd be worth it in the end. So I think that was my yardstick that I was always aiming at.
That's a fantastic way of saying it. You know, saying that you like to, you know, go take the road less traveled to reach your full potential, put in the work and see the bigger picture, to see past that adversity and see the end goal while you're doing it. That is a very common theme we've noticed in all the interviews as well. Your high performance people, everyone was able to see the higher purpose of their decisions, to sort of, you know, take the short-term pain, but then realize the long-term gain, you know, in a simple way of saying it. So I find that quite remarkable, and that you've had this tenacity to go through it, even when things were difficult. You know, that self-belief, it's truly commendable. And I think what's even more impressive about your story is that while you were going through this battle, you took up the mantle of being a house committee member in Metanoia Residence. You also decided to become a residence mentor in your second year, and in turn, you know, serving the leadership role of running the residence and their operations, as well as being part of the team that looked after the other residents in the res, you know, plus you focus on your schoolwork or your academics. And on top of that, you and your business partner, also a longtime friend, decided to found a social media marketplace called Stellies Does Deals, which has quite, you know, in the prior years, grown substantially to where it is now, and is very much a leading source in the Cape region for students to find discounts with companies. So I think it's a perfect blend. But what challenges did you experience during that transition of juggling different different roles all in one, and how did you make that work? Because you would have been extremely busy just with the studies alone. So how did you fit everything into one day and get things done?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think I often find myself to be, if I can say, like on a bicycle. So it's very difficult to actually go on a bicycle slowly. But I'm better on a bicycle is much easier to ride if you can actually, you know, ride at a decent pace. But when you need to slow down or stopping at a robot or whatever on a bicycle, it's very easy to fall or wobble and stuff. So I actually find myself a bit like that. If I'm only doing one thing or not very much, I actually not sure exactly what I'm doing, not sure if I do stuff well enough. Where if I have a lot going on, I feel like it's like an old saying, if you want something done, ask a busy person to do it. And I feel like I am able to handle things better in a busy environment. And I think within that as well, it's always just stuff I try and enjoy. So I love the hardcore house committee stuff. You know, I've got a bit of a social need always, like I'm a bit of an extrovert in that way. So, you know, it's stuff that always, it scratches my itch that I've got. So, you know, I love being involved with people and involved with the res. So, you know, I could have that kind of outlet there. And I think one of my, if I can say, like, things that help me through all of it is prioritization. So I don't like the whole idea of multitasking, doing multiple things at once. For these hours you are doing your race stuff, and then you do your race stuff, and then for these hours you are studying, and then for these hours, it's very compartmentalized. It's very, when you're doing something, you're doing only that, and then you move on to the next thing. And so, like, obviously keeping track of what you need to do and lists and to-do lists and all that stuff, but the compartmentalization and prioritization, if I can say that, is probably what helped me to be able to cope with anything that I've ever had to do.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant, because then, as you said, in terms of, especially in the world around us now, we're seeing a lot of people getting very distracted as they sort of try and do a task, but then have their mind focusing on the next task. And it's quite rare that people focus solely on one task in a given moment. And I think you're probably familiar with a concept called time boxing, which is exactly what you've described. You allocate certain time to specific tasks, and then you don't leave one until it's done in that allocated time frame. And then once it's done, it's out of mind, and then you move on to the next task, so that you've got that peace of mind that you're productive and you're using your time constructively. Because I think one of the biggest reasons for this, mental burnout and fatigue, especially in high performance work cultures, is people are overwhelmed with information and tasks from many angles, and then they start to process one at a time. But then they sort of try and jump from task 1 to task 3 to task 5. And then that just causes that whole, that sense of being completely overwhelmed, and in turn leads to, burnout in the workplace. So I like how you've taken all that and applied it into your life, just to compartmentalize and tick the box each time, into each task, and then move forward. So in terms of everything you've said so far, you seem quite methodical, you seem quite focused. How does this align with your values? What would you say your core values are then that drive you to be the best that you can, and to make the choices you make? Because, I don't think you would have just decided to become a Harkar member, or just to found Stellies Does Deals. You would have had to think about it. And as you said, to push yourself to be the best. But what are your values that you use when you make decisions and evaluate this is a good idea or a bad business idea?
So something that I guess generally one of my values is like, how much value is this bringing to me and those around me? So, is what I'm doing actually going to make my life better, someone else's life better? Is there going to be I think it's like, since I've grown up with Warren Buffett, like in my ears and in front of my eyes. So I think it's a little bit value driven in that way. So I think it stems for that. There's a lot of, I guess it's a little bit of a thing throughout my life that I always think, like, what's the value in actually doing this? And I think, so if I had to say one, that's probably it. I've got to, depending on like, what's happening, I think there's quite a few different principles or values that I like to guide my decisions by, but I'd probably say what's the, like, the true value that everyone gets a benefit out of it. And I think the important thing as well is it's not just like a me value. It's there sometimes needs to be an element for yourself, but then there always needs to be an element, bigger than yourself. What value are you creating? Are you making the world or people around you, are you making their situation any better or worse? And I always obviously try to go by the principle that, that their situation is more, that they're better off since I've been involved than before. So,
right.
Yeah.
And so then how did that relate to Stellies Does Deals being founded? What was the need? Could you sort of tell us how that whole idea turned into this online marketplace that we see it today for?
Yeah, so it was already a page. So it's just an Instagram page, and it started as a page that was already there actually. So by two guys I ended up knowing, which I didn't really know at the time. And they grew it to, I think, about like a 2,000 follower kind of page. And then it stopped posting for a while. And I was like, this page is, and I always loved it when it was posting. And I was like, it's a great page. There's so much that people need. Like, everyone always wants to know where there's great deals. And I always remember there was like a viral picture in Stellies of like almost someone had drawn like a timetable in a way. And it was like Monday, and it was like all the different deals on Monday. It was like so literally someone done it on an exam pad, but every now and then it would like go through a WhatsApp group and everyone saved it and loved it and talk about it. And you could just tell everyone wanted that. And then, so the Stellies Does Deals page was there, but it kind of died down. So I approached the guys and just looked if we could come to some kind of arrangement that I could, take over the page. So I kind of covered them for any costs that they'd been doing. And yeah, I just started running the page, and then it grew from there. And yeah, I made some good partners along the way. But it was just that idea that for me, the value was very clear. It was very clear that students wanted deals. I mean, it's a well-known thing that students want good student deals, and that's what most places offer them. But students don't always, from being in a student position, you don't even always know where to go or where to get it. So it's just it's a bridge between students wanting deals and people being able to offer the deals.
That's fantastic. And it's a very valid and applicable, medium to sort of bridge the two parties together. And with this whole process of the Does Deals, I know you have a co-partner. What sort of lessons have you learned from this whole venture that you would maybe take going forward into other entrepreneurial pursuits that you pursue?
I'd say what you need to be very obvious in the value that you're offering. So the other thing which kind of links in is that you need to offer like long-term value. So I don't like the whole short-term. For example, if you're helping a company with anything, if you can help their sales this week, and then that's all you can do, and then next week their sales go back to what they were, like you haven't really done too much. So our aim at least is to always create a long-term marketing partnership with any of our clients or anything like that, and being able to grow, what is a useful strategy, what is that, what is not. We like to be able to, it's a partnership in that way. So it's focus on long-term growth. And I think providing obvious value. So, it's not just theoretical value that it's hard to track. We'd like to be able to that our clients can obviously see like increased sales or more foot traffic or more inquiries or growth on their page or something like that. So that is something that we try focus on in those two ways.
It's amazing. It's amazing how you fully integrated your actuarial analytics and that way of thinking into this business and sort of had the perfect blend, as well as your people skills learned from your position as a hawker and managing the marketing portfolio, and sort of merging all these different pockets of experience and putting it into one into one purpose, which is your lifestyle. And it's so amazing to see, because your energy really does radiate. Whenever I speak to you, whenever we chat, I get the feeling of your energy and your passion for your projects, and maintaining that energy and living that high performance lifestyle every single day can be difficult. So we'd definitely like to know how you manage yourself every day. Do you have a daily routine that you make sure you do every single day to keep yourself firing on all cylinders all the time?
So I'd probably say it's twofold. One is, so I generally try and don't compromise on sleep. 8 hours a day kind of thing, 7 to 8 hours a day, 9, whatever you're like, consistent kind of bedtime. I'm a little bit like an old man like that. Like to get to bed a bit early and rise a bit earlier, and be consistent with my sleep. If I start to, my sleeping pattern goes, or I start sleeping less, everything kind of falls apart a bit. And the other thing is, which we've recently actually spoken about, is my meditation. So I'm a big meditator, love it. I've been doing it in different forms for many years, but I've been doing, like, as I said, transcendental meditation for the last 4 or 5 years now, I think. And I love it. So it's like I think of it as like my rock in the day. So yeah, big boost for me every day. So I love it.
That's fantastic. It, especially with the meditation, it definitely clears your mind and gives you that focus to stay grounded, right? And to filter out information, because in your profession especially, it can be quite high pressure, high deadlines can be quite demanding on a person, and I definitely see the relevance. I mean, I'm in the accounting profession, and I can definitely relate to the importance of having a morning routine and a morning practice coupled with good sleep, because then it helps you have that mental clarity to then process everything in your day. And it's definitely something very valuable. And in terms of this life journey, because you've done so much and you've pushed yourself out of these comfort zones, in all these pursuits you've performed, what would you say, because this is now we were trying to get some value for our viewers, what would you say would be your three key life lessons that you've learned on this journey, um, through your life, that you'd like to share with us?
So I think so. It's three. So one of them, they'll come to me as I go. I'll just see what happens. Um, but so I'd probably say the one is, and this is something that I always, from speaking to like parents or grandparents or anyone that's like an adult or even just a little bit older, is probably just the perspective of time a bit. So if you ask like your parents how long they've worked for, they won't know the exact year. They'll say 30 years, 20 years, 40 years, or whatever, something like that. They won't know if it's 20 or 25 or 30 or 35 or 30 or 34, 33. I mean, it's immaterial to them. They won't know. So to be able to try and put yourself in your shoes when you say 40, 50, 60, and you think, these 2 or 3 years that I'm undergoing now, it's hard, or, for whatever reason about these 2 or 3 years, when I'm 50, will it matter? And, you might think, and you even think, if you think back on your old hardships, you think like, yo, that was a really tough few months. But I mean, now it's not such a big deal. So it's just a bit of the perspective of time in that sense. So that helps me when you're going through a hard period, in a year, 2, 10 years, it'll be a lot less of a big deal to you. So yeah, I mean, that's probably the best, one of the ones that keep me going on that. Another one I'll just say, like, I mean, it's so, what's it like, basic, but do what you like. Oh, there's a caveat to it that you need to do what you like. That I can't remember. I think it's like in a Chris Rock comedy shows, but he says he doesn't tell his kids to follow their passion. He tells his kids to follow their passion as long as they're hiring and pay a decent salary. So, but it's basically like follow your passion, but there's real life caveats to that. You know what I mean? Like follow your passion, but there's a real world element that you need to be able to, pay bills, be independent. What you're passionate about actually needs to be real in terms of that. But that otherwise it's not fun. You're not going to be able to be the best version of yourself if you're just doing stuff you don't like. And doing the stuff that you like, there's always going to be parts in it that you don't like. So even if you're doing your favorite thing, which is, if like for doing such a cool job, I really like my job, but there's parts of it, that you don't like, and that's boring. But that's perfect, and that's part of it. So not your dreams aren't going to be number one perfect. You're going to love every second of every day. There's hardships in it, but it's just about the balance. Overall, is it worth it or not? And probably third one, hey, is there any third one that I've told you that you'd stuck out to you?
For me, I love the way you live. You say, have fun and don't take yourself too seriously. Like that for me was something that I really enjoyed about your personality. So yeah, I mean, so if I'm going to say what your third one is, something you've taught me in varsity was definitely, have fun and don't take yourself too seriously, because life is short. We may think life is long, but honestly, life goes by in a flash. So you want to make sure you have fun and can't be serious the whole time.
Yeah. So I can't remember, it was one of my early years, and I think it was one of my mates was speaking to like a third year engineer, and I was in first year, and they were like, you've done so well to get to third year engineering. Like, what's your advice for us, like in owing in first year? And he was like, work hard, play hard. And we were like, cool, got it. So I think that's what we did. Hey, so I mean, you work hard, you play hard, you have like when you have fun, make sure you're having a lot of fun. But as you say, I think also when you're working, I mean, put it into perspective. I mean, it's a Gary V thing. I mean, so I mean, everyone, some people have differing opinions on him, but I enjoy the guy a lot. And I think he says when something bad happens in his life, like he says, like when he loses a client or something, he imagines that he gets a call and that his mom's just died. And he thinks like, would I be caring about whatever just bad thing happened if I got that call? And he's like, no, I would never like care if I lost a client if my mom just died. So then he's like, cool, my mom's alive, awesome day, don't care. Like lost a client, not a big deal. Like so he says like every day is like the 5 or 6 people most important to him. Is their health fine? It's a good day. So I think it's just about the perspective of that. You know what I mean? Like if stuff bad happens in our life, you know, anything, bump your car or something, suddenly your day feels terrible and it's a terrible day. But it's like the perspective of a lot worse things could happen. So yeah, I mean that's always helped me have fun in the times that are always a bit harder as well.
That's a beautiful way of putting it. Honestly, I really like it. And it's such a positive outlook and it's sincere, you know. So I really enjoy your life lessons, Dylan. It is something that is, it does resonate with me as well, and I'm sure with all our viewers. The last question, you could say, it's one that I enjoy asking all our high performance guests on the show is, if there's a viewer out there who relates to your story, who's sort of walking in your shoes proverbially, and has been going through what you've been going through, is there any last bit of advice you'd give to them to help them on their journey?
I'd just say understanding yourself is important, and I think that goes for a lot of different things. And like so, understand, you know, if you want to study this really hard degree and you want to do something, like just often ask yourself, why do you want to do it? What's your own motivation? Maybe are you doing it just because you want people to like you, you want people to respect you, or do you want to do it because you enjoy it? You want to see how far you can push yourself. And it's the same kind of thing. Like when you're studying, you got to understand what makes your studying, what makes your studying effective, all that kind of stuff. So I think, and you know, if you like to watch certain movies, like there's nothing wrong with spending tons of time. Like I'm doing a Pirates of the Caribbean marathon, like at the moment with my family, and it's awesome. And it's like, you know what I mean? Like you got to understand it. Are you just doing that because you're escaping work and you like retreating from your life, or are you doing it because you really like it? It's not necessarily the action itself that's the key. You're just understanding yourself, just self-awareness, I think is, and you're never going to, no one's ever, I think, gotten to a perfect self-awareness. It's always a process. And since we're changing, especially like at our ages at the moment, you know, every year is a different you. So self-awareness, I'd probably say, it's just always working on that is vital.
That is brilliant. That is a brilliant way to put it, and you're 100% right. You know, I think the more self-aware you are, the better decisions you can make, because then at least you'll be making decisions while staying true to yourself. And
Okay.
I think that can, in the long term, lead to sustained happiness or more fulfillment in a person. You know, I think a big thing or a big guiding principle in my life is living a life of, without regret, living a life to have lived it fully the way I wanted to. And that only comes from, like you said, working towards self-awareness and making conscious decisions to pursue what you really enjoy in the moment, given the circumstances. So I think that's a brilliant way, especially to conclude our show. And it's been an absolute pleasure having you on our show. I really want to thank you, Dylan, for your time, and thank you to all our viewers for watching this show. We will put our guests' social media details in the comment box below so that you can connect with him and you can follow his journey. Please like, comment, and subscribe to our channel, and to continue to be inspired by our other high performers. Until next time, cheers.